Hello and a warm welcome to the Federal. I'm Neelu Vyas, and on this platform, I'll be doing debates, interviews, monologue analysis, and much more, mainly focusing on politics and current affairs. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the remote electronic voting machine, which is at a conceptual stage. And the Election Commission of India recently said that these RVMs, that is the remote electronic voting machines, will be catering to the migrant workers who are unable to reach their home constituency on the day of the polling. So the idea is to connect 72 constituencies through one remote polling booth. The idea is very good and a practicable one. People say it's doable, but there are a lot of question marks. There's a lot of mistrust. There are a lot of people who are raising the doubt, saying that first of all, the Election Commission should have thought of strengthening the VVPAT verification rather than bringing the RVMs. So I'm joined by Dr. Subashish Banerjee, who is on leave currently from IIT Delhi. He's been associated with the Computer Science Department, and currently he is the head of the department at Ashoka University from the Computer Science Department. Dr. Banerjee, welcome on the Federal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, sir, to have you on the program. And you have basically your core area has been the machine learning. But when you hear people talking about the remote electronic voting machine, do you really find this idea doable?
It is certainly a doable idea, and it's a welcome idea. Given that more than 1/3 of our population are migrants, and they are disenfranchised right now from voting. I think the time for remote voting has certainly come. So there's no question about it, right? And whether it is doable, it is certainly doable with technology. But a step like this requires a lot of due diligence, a lot of public consultations. They have to be examined. There are many issues that need to be examined threadbare. And while doable, some of those issues are actually difficult issues. They're not simple issues, both technologically and politically, right? They're tricky issues to deal with. So from the current proposal, it is not at all clear how the Election Commission is addressing all those tricky issues, right? And of course, the older issues of the EVM and VVPAT, as you just mentioned, they remain in some ways.
But their idea, though it's not very clear, because the demonstration before all the political parties is going to happen on 16 January. But don't you think that before the Election Commission had thought of floating this idea, they should have slightly explained the technology, because it's not very clear. They say that they are going to connect 72 constituencies through one remote polling booth. But how is that going to be possible? Because they say that it's a standalone device, it doesn't need connectivity. How is it really going to function?
So in my opinion, Election Commission is barking up the wrong tree. The machine is not the question. There are multiple ways to design that machine, all fairly straightforward. So it's a multi-constituency electronic voting machine, right? So you can select the candidates of multiple constituencies. So presumably when you come in, they'll display the candidates corresponding to your constituency. You'll be able to make a choice, and that will get recorded in compartmentalized multi-constituency ways. And at some later stage, it will get consolidated. Now, this is a fairly straightforward thing to do and an incorrect thing to do, right? I think that the emphasis is completely on the wrong place. I think that the emphasis, in my opinion, should be the more difficult procedures of how do I apply to be a remote voter? Right? Where do I apply and who approves my application? Right? What are the guarantees that my application will be dealt with fairly and I will not be disenfranchised? Right? I make an application and you don't process it, right? That's unfair. If I apply and you deny for some reason, which is under what conditions may I be denied? And whatever are your decisions, will they be verifiable? Will they be publicly auditable? Right. So those are the crucial questions. The second crucial issue, in my opinion, is that suppose you allow me to vote remotely. you have to invalidate me in the local constituency, right? Original constituency in some way. And how will you guarantee that I'll be able to vote in only one place and the other place is really invalidated, right? So this guarantee needs to be verifiable in some way, that I am voting remotely and I am not voting locally. And this, anybody, all political parties, all candidates should be able to verify publicly, right? And how will this get done? This is independent of what machine you have designed. The other consideration is that if I vote remotely, how will my votes get consolidated, both for the VVPAT and for the electronic votes, and how will they be counted? Will they be counted separately? Will they be counted together? If they're counted separately, it will leak information. It will leak voter secrecy information, that how the remote constituency has voted differently from the local constituency. And that's something that should not leak, in my opinion. The second thing is that where will you do the VVPAT audit? Will you do the VVPAT audit separately for the remote voters, or will you do it in a consolidated manner along with the local constituency, right? So, and how will this exactly get done? So that's another crucial issue. I think that the final crucial issue is that if I vote remotely, so suppose I'm in Delhi. Delhi has a certain political environment, right? And there are certain political parties, usually AAP, BJP, and Congress are the parties that contest in my constituency. Now, suppose I'm traveling to Mumbai, right, or Kolkata, and I vote from there. The political environment out there is completely different. Who will be the polling agents, right? For example, AAP doesn't have a representation in Kolkata, so who will be the polling agents for them? Will they be at a disadvantage if I vote from Kolkata, right? Not that I am saying that I'll vote for AAP, but and in a political environment that is different from my local constituency, what gives me the guarantee that?
Banerjee, are you saying that the political parties will have a challenge even once the migrant voter is identified, who a migrant voter is, but then ultimately the political parties also have to plan and devise things as to how they will put the polling agents in place? So is that going to be a challenge for the political parties?
Yes, I'm surely. For example, the polling agents play a crucial role. According to law, the polling agents are to be present of major political parties at the polling booth to ensure that the polling process is correct. Now, in our constitution, there are political parties that may not have a global presence, that may not have a presence all over India. There are South Indian parties that don't have any presence in North India, and so on and so forth. So will that be a disadvantage when they can't field polling agents, or will they,
Absolutely.
and how will you guarantee that the remote political environment will not coerce me into voting in a certain way? So there will be no vote coercion. The polling agent's role is to prevent vote coercion from happening, but if they don't have a presence, so these are very crucial issues in a democracy, and I think that these are the main issues rather than the machine.
And the
Which
Election Commission hasn't answered any of these so far.
I think that I have not read even these concerns being discussed anywhere, and that's what appalls me a little bit, because to me, the remote washing are these concerns. In machine and computer science is not today. It is 40 years of conventional wisdom in computer science that electronic voting has to be software and hardware independent. You may use a software, but you have to demonstrate that an undetected change in a software or hardware should not cause an undetectable change in the election outcome. This is called software independence. A hardware device like an EVM violates that principle. And this is a principle that is propagated by the German Constitutional Code. They banned an EVM in Germany, saying that you can't use EVM because they violate this principle. The US National Academy of Sciences in the 2018 came out with a 200-page report saying that US should not use electronic voting machine and have a paper-based mechanism. This was a recommendation in 2018, very recent. And there were at least several Nobel laureates and Turing Award winners were members of that committee. The committee report is available in a public domain.
But in the Indian, Dr. Banerjee, in the Indian context, I would say that, there are there's a lot of skepticism still about the way the EVMs are functioning. Say, for example, taking the example of the latest example of Gujarat Assembly elections, where at the fag end of the second phase, there was a there was a fast voting which was noticed in the last 1 hour, which, made the political parties doubt the whole system. Then again, the expansion of the VVPAT has not happened. So, do you think that the time is ripe for the Election Commission to introduce RVMs still when there is a lot of doubt and mistrust around EVM, their functioning, the VVPAT? Is the timing right? We do need RVMs, there's no doubt about it. But is the timing to bring in RVMs right and appropriate?
I think to my mind, these two are separate issues and both need to be addressed, right? And I think that the way we are conducting elections with EVM is ridiculous. That's the only way I'll describe it. There is worldwide wisdom. I think everybody understands the problem except the Election Commissioner of India and his experts. I'm shocked by this. And whether Gujarat elections have been hacked, nobody can say for sure, and at least I can't. But I would say that it is the responsibility of the Election Commission to ensure that no such doubts are raised. And doubts will always be raised if you conduct elections in this particular way, right? In a highly hardware-dependent way. I think that one easy way, not a foolproof way, but one easy way out of it is to count the VVPATs. Do a statistical audit of the VVPATs, right? And I was a part of a Citizens Commission of Election, and that was our recommendation. Okay, you're doing electronic elections, that's fine, go ahead. Right? Though that also should not be done in this incredible way. But at least count the VVPATs, right? At every constituency, and make up a procedure of what to do if the VVPAT counts and the electronic vote counts mismatch, right? Make transparent laws that how to recover in case there is a serious discrepancy. The discrepancy is more than the winning margin by the election votes, or the same order of the winning margin. Will you do re-election? Will you do something? Not doing the VVPAT audit, not counting them at all, or counting them in a small constituency, violating all statistical principle, does not suit the Election Commission of India. Right? It's a Election Commission of India, of the largest democracy of the world, and they are behaving in a way which is, in my opinion, I don't want to use strong words, but ridiculous is about the best that I can do.
Yeah. If you're saying that holding elections through EVMs is not right, and worldwide people are shifting to the ballot papers, so if we are doubtful about the EVMs, then what about RVMs? And there's no point in talking about RVMs.
Yes, so again, I am not saying that you cannot do electronic elections. In a country like this, you should do electronic elections, right? But electronic elections should not be conflated with an EVM. There are multiple ways to do an electronic election, right? And EVM, and there are at least 50 techniques in computer science that tells you how to do electronic elections correctly, right? And not using an EVM. The EVM's problem is that what gets recorded in an electronic memory, you can't see it. As a voter, Neelu, you can't see what has got recorded, right? Absolutely. So you have to trust an expert that the machine is functioning correctly, and that itself violates the democracy principle. You should be convinced that your vote has been recorded correctly. There's a minimum that any voter requires. And the electronic voting machine does not give you that guarantee. There's no dispute resolution. So you can't fight with an electronic voting machine, right? So if you think that the machine has recorded your vote incorrectly. So this problem has been addressed in computer science, at least since the 1960s. And there are at least 50 solutions out there on how to do this correctly. So they should just, adopt one of those, evaluate those, and so on and so forth, rather than defending that, what I'm doing is right because I'm saying it right. That's not science. And yes, certainly the EVM and hence the RVM, that technology needs a relook. That's one set of issues.
Are you hinting at the fact that just like we keep talking about EVMs being hacked, or there are chances or possibilities of EVMs not being addressed properly to the satisfaction of the political parties, so RVM will also be there is a possibility that one could hack the RVM, could
You know,
manipulate.
so I would say that the RVMs and the EVMs, the concerns remain the same as long as it's
Okay,
machine dependent. It
right,
doesn't make it either better or worse, right? So, all those concerns that an EVM has, an RVM will also have, and they need to be addressed pronto, right?
okay,
So that's, I think, a separate issue that, ECI should take as a top priority,
right.
ahead of remote voting, in my opinion. But that is not to say that remote voting
What
will
you're
not be
saying,
addressed.
which means that the timing of the RVM is not proper. I mean, till the time we don't address the issues related around VVPAT and EVMs.
I think that the ECI is a big organization, right? I mean, they should address both these concerns, perhaps simultaneously. The EVM should be set right, and hence RVM. But these other issues about remote voting are not based on RVMs. They're independent of RVMs. That how do you apply, how do you, in a verifiable way, invalidate it? All those points that I mentioned, they are issues independent of the RVMs. So
Right.
election commission should certainly, 70 years have passed since we are doing elections. So certainly election commission should address those issues as an urgent basis. So I would say that they both need to be addressed, and both
And
are urgent.
do you see RVMs as some kind of an electoral reform, which the election commission says that would be an electoral reform they are thinking of, and which is a much needed reform in the country?
I think that the remote voting is a much needed electoral reform. I don't contest that with RBI. 30%, more than 38% of our population are migrant. And if they don't vote, then what is the meaning of that vote? If 38% people cannot vote. So I think that electoral reform is already too late. Right? Governments much before should have addressed, and ECI much before, tens of years back should have addressed that problem. So Godspeed, sooner the better. And
But
at least the issue has
despite all the
come.
doubts, Dr. Banerjee, despite all the doubts, why do you think that the Election Commission is so reluctant to deal with these issues which you have cited? Is it because of some kind of political pressure, because it suits a ruling dispensation, or it suits the political parties? What is the main reason? With the RVMs also, we are told that there is some PSU which is going to be looking into the RVMs and the technology and everything. So, given with there's a lot of skepticism still, but the election commission seems reluctant. So what is the reason? Do you
It
feel
is
there's
hard
some
for me to say. It's hard for me to say, but I think that I see a lack of. I see problems in both attitude and expertise.
okay,
Right? Forget the solution; they are unable to even understand what the problem is. Right? So, and I think that's a serious problem of expertise and attitude both.
when
You
you
know.
say that there is a serious problem with expertise also, so does an election commission of India think of hiring the right kind of people, kind of people?
They don't even need to hire the right kind of people. They just need to literature that is out there in the world, rather than making statements that what I'm saying is correct. They just need to go out and read the voting literature, which they don't seem to have done. So I think that's certainly a lack of expertise.
So,
Yeah.
which means that there are a lot of issues, administrative issues, legal issues, technological issues. So, uh, it's not going to be an easily doable idea, because the government is saying that it's going to be ready with a pilot project, probably next year for 8 assembly or 9 assembly elections, which are going to happen. So, do you think that by that time they will be ready with this RVM technology, or the government is, or maybe the ECI is being over ambitious at the moment?
Building a multi-constituency RVM, there are hundreds and hundreds of people in the country who can do it. It's not an issue at all, right? I would say not being able to do it is a disgrace. Being able to do it gives you no credit, right?
Right.
So I don't see that as a problem at all. My students would do it. So, and I would be shocked and fail them if they can't. So that I don't see that as an issue at all.
Right.
But I think that's not the issue with elections. The design of an RVM, otherwise a second-year student could have run an election. I think that if you think that that's what running an election means, I'm sorry, right? You're living in the wrong world. That's all else.
Right. So let's see what happens on January 16th. The Election Commission of India has asked all the political parties to be present so that the demonstration of this prototype multi-constituency machine can be made. But given the fact that there is a lot of mistrust, there are a lot of question marks as to how they will do it. It's not going to be easy. Will all the political parties come on board? That is also another big question. But we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee, for taking all the questions so humbly. Thank you very much. And stay tuned to the Federal for more dose of politics and current affairs with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more interesting updates.